Alrighty, folks, it is time for the Grand Prix Caersol Grand Finals. We have Nyx up against DrChipmunk here. Recent tournament hotshot after the Eternal victory last month versus one of the highest rated players in the current field. I believe Chip has actively been doing ELO calculations and currently has herself at the highest ELO. But the data does back that up. Chip has a lot of qualifications going into Worlds this coming April. So it's going to be a tough match. They're both on pretty strong decks in this field. Mono Black Villainy, as Nyx is calling it, Mono Black Midrange versus Jeskai Battle Control. This is going to be a pretty grindy matchup. I know how this match ends in a general sense, but I do not know the specifics because we're going to be going through the replays here today. So let's talk about the decks and let's dive into game one. As always, before we dive into these specifics, though, if you're interested in checking out the format for yourself, links in the description below are to all your key resources for all things Revolution Custom Magic. That includes a link to the Custom Magic Discord server where you can join in and play Revolution for yourself, as well as check out various set projects that are in construction, as well as links to all of the necessary resources, including the Revolution Compendium and the 2 different card search engines for help building your own decks and taking a look at the format yourself. So, Nyx is on a mono black mid-range deck that you will have seen twice if you've been watching my GP run. You'll know that this is both the deck I beat in round 3 and the deck that knocked me back out of the tournament in our semifinals rematch. Nyx is on a very resource-intensive strategy, and that is to say the primary axis by which this deck functions is on denying resources from the opponent while generating additional resources for themselves. So let's talk about the resource denial aspect first. There is a lot of hand attack here. We've got 4 copies of Unmaker of Thought to make opponents with more than 1 card in hand discard a card, both as this 2-mana 1/1 enters play and as they chant it onto instants and sorceries. There's also 2 copies of Rostabal the Enduring Star, whose Path of Oblivion 1-mana adventure makes an opponent discard a card and drains them for 2 if they pitch a land or don't pitch a card at all. There's Inner Ring's Pupil, a 4-mana 3/3 that, when it enters or attacks, makes target player discard a card. If they can't, they sacrifice a creature. If they can't do that, they lose 7 life. So it not only does more of that hand attack, but it can also pay off that hand attack by way of hitting their board, and if they have no board to hit either, they just start dying rapidly. And that leads into the fact that this is not only resource denial from the side of hand attack, but this is also resource denial on board. We also see this through not just the 2 of Inner Ring's Pupil, but the playset of Transcendent Council, a newcomer from Solitaire. Quad white-black pips, always just going to be black pips in this particular deck. For a 6/6 flyer for 4, and at combat on each of your turns, each opponent must sacrifice a non-land, non-token permanent, and if they do, you have to tap Transcendent Council. So not able to attack while your opponent still has a board, but this will just passively tax what your opponent has available to them. And outside of creatures, we still see more resource punishing. Duress going to really hit a lot of relevant cards in this particular matchup. Full playset in the main. Choose a non-creature, non-land card from your opponent's hand. They discard it. Classic effect that we've now had for 9 months back in the format, and it hasn't done a whole lot up to this point, but for main deck in a field that was mostly dominated by control definitely looks a lot better than it has in a while. But there's also Die As Thou Wilt, which can protect a creature, but is mostly just going to be an edict. Just make a player sacrifice a creature. Twilight Ambush, kill creatures with power toughness 2 or less. I believe that's only a 2 of in this particular deck, and that is wise because this is not a matchup where the 2 of Twilight Ambush is going to make as much of an impact. Damned Hell as a 3 of swamp cycling for 2, so it can go find one of your swamps, just get another land if needed. And otherwise, 5 mana to deal a bunch of damage to target creatures and or planeswalkers, and then gain a bunch of life based on the number of swamps in play on your board. And cycling cards in your graveyard can do a lot to pad out life totals or deal with meaningful threats. Not as important in this matchup either, but as you probably saw in our semifinals match, definitely relevant text in more aggressive matchups. And then, of course, the big other new pickup in Solitaire, Nightfall. Although Twilight Ambush, also a relevant Solitaire pickup, thanks to the reprint, but Nightfall is the big one. This gets to act as not only a means of, punishing more aggressive decks, but also is a main deck anti-aggro card that gets to have text in this control matchup, because rather than this being a 4-mana -4/-4 to all creatures, in this particular matchup, this is a 4/4 for 4 with flying, which is exactly what this wants to be in this matchup. So that is pivoting into the resource generation, which is all we have left to talk about. 8 2-mana draw 2s. Night's Whisper and Past Resolved, both as play sets. Draw 2 cards, lose 2 life. In the case of Past Unresolved, you also mill 2 cards. Not too relevant in this particular matchup, but it is just another set of 2-mana draw 2s. That is backed up by 23 lands, 19 basic swamps, and a full playset of the last new Solitaire card in this main deck, and we'll talk about the sideboard after game 1. Kara's Observatory, a non-basic swamp, enters tapped if you control a non-swamp land, so always untapped in this particular deck, and you can pay a black and tap it as a sorcery to exile target card from an opponent's graveyard and make that player lose 1 life. So a little bit of extra reach over the top, backing up the bits of aggression you get from Transcendent Council, Inner Ring's Pupil, the bit of drain from Rostabal, the bit of pressure you can get from Unmaker of Thought, the 4/4 tokens from Nightfall. It all kind of adds up alongside the hand taxing that all of these cards do, and the draw power coming from Night's Whisper and Past Unresolved. But notably, the one danger here is that this deck is working on a bit of a fixed life total. There are 8 2-mana draw 2s, but they do all come at the cost of 2 life. Rostabal only gains you 2 life if they discard a land or can't discard, so that's potentially 24 life total if you get to play both Paths of Oblivion and gain life off of it both times. And then otherwise, Damned to Hell is your only way to gain additional life, and that's going to be hard to find purchase on in this particular control matchup. So you can't do too many of these draw 2s, but how many do you really need against control? We'll find out, because Chip is, again, on Battle Control, a deck that did not see a ton of experimentation last season, but I know it is something that Chip has been tinkering with for a while, and it is something that Chip has proven is good in the prior season, at least to me. I can't speak to if this is something that Chip played a lot of last season, though, but I know it has done a lot of success for her here. Only 8 creatures here, 5 with adventure spells between 4 copies, a full playset of Ucus Crusaris, an 8-mana 7/9 that does not matter most of the time. The important thing here is that it's Path of Exoneration, red and white instant that deals 3 damage to any non-player target, and you gain 3 life. Lightning Helix, pretty good even if it can't go to the face. Speaking of Lightning Helix, Offset Daemon as a 3 of 4-mana 3/3 with flying, lifelink, and haste. So you can just deal 3 to the opponent every turn and gain you 3 life. It's a repeatable Lightning Helix for twice the cost. Can't block, so not great at defending yourself, but pads your life total to make up for the inability to stop aggression. And when it enters, if it was cast, you make an Overflow subroutine token that returns Offset Daemon from your graveyard to the battlefield when it runs. So if Offset Daemon dies, there is the potential for it to come back and continue doing its work later on. And then finally, 1 copy of Eltanon the Silent Star in the main here. 10 mana, 10/10 flyer that on cast prohibits opponents from casting spells until your next turn. The important thing here is Path of Stillness, X and double white sorcery adventure that exiles all non-land permanents with mana value X or less. Just a nice, simple X cost sweeper. The core of the strategy, though, comes down to, of course, the battles in Battle Control. Path of Scales, a 4-mana, 5 defense battle operation with an enter trigger to draw 3 cards. So just 4 mana, draw 3. Nothing too splashy here, but when it's lost at least 2 defense, it starts giving opposing creatures a passive -1 power debuff. And if it's been defeated, you get to copy your non-creature spells when you cast them, and you can choose new targets with copies. And that is going to, if left unchecked, create a death spiral of value that the opponent has to overcome. That's backed up by 3 copies of Clash at Mistrit Vale, another 5 defense battle. This one for 1 and double blue. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you make a 1/1 soldier token. This can come up the board a little bit or be a means of winning the game. When it's lost 2 defense at its 3 defense mark, you get to rebuy an instant or sorcery from your graveyard to your hands. So if you burn it, you get to pick up that burn spell immediately. And then once defeated, your non-creature spells just get to cost 2 less to cast. Lastly, for battles is Clash at Orith Cross. 3 and double white for a 4 defense battle. When it enters, if you cast it from your hand, you destroy all creatures. From there, at 2 defense, at halfway there, at your end step, you make a 1/1 soldier token. More coming up the board, and when it's defeated, your tokens get +1/+1 and have vigilance, so it can really push a lot of damage through over time if left unchecked, on top of just being a clean board wipe. And it's possible that this does actually matter in this matchup, given that Nyx's primary mechanism for closing out the game are things like Nightfall tokens and Inner Ring's Pupil and Transcendent Council. Clash at Orith Cross being able to just, say, nice job developing your board, but I don't care. Do it again. Could be pretty relevant. Helping to clear all of these battles is 3 copies of Electronic Countermeasures. So Path of Exoneration, importantly, does 3 damage to any non-player target, so can hit these battles down to 2 defense on Path of Scales or Clash at Mistrit Vale, or 1 defense on Clash at Orith Cross. Same with Offset Demon being able to attack them for 3. Electronic Countermeasures, meanwhile, though, just fully defeats any battle you target with. Because it's 2 and a red, deal 5 to target battle, creature, or planeswalker. If you control a permanent with mana value greater than it, you exile X cards from the top of your library, where X is the excess damage dealt, and can play one of those cards until your next end step. So, importantly, as I learned watching Chip's semifinals match, is that you can target battles even when they are defeated. So Electronic Countermeasures in the late game could just be 3 mana, exile the top 5 cards of your deck, and you can play one of them this turn. Or even just do that for 1 mana off of a Clash at Mistrit Vale. But it also still, digs 1 card deep when you hit a Clash at Orith Cross, or digs an additional 3 cards deep if you hit something that's been damaged by an Ukius Crusaris. It gets corrupted by any of these battles other than Clash at Mistrit Vale. So Path of Scales, Clash at Orith Cross, even Offset Daemon can corrupt it to get you that value, but its primary function is just as good removal that checks these things. Though, importantly for countermeasures, that is 5 damage for 3 mana, 1 shy of killing Transcendent Council, which is one of the more prevalent creatures in Nyx's deck. Does kill Inner Ring's Pupil, does kill Nightfall Dragons, though, so that can be relevant. Otherwise, we've got a playset of counterspells, Overrule Thought being the counterspell of choice. 2 mana instant, counter target spell unless its controller pays 2, target player mills 3 cards. This gets to do double duty here of not only being a quench when you need it to be, but you can also have this be a functional win condition if you've got Path of Scales online and have multiple things letting you copy up your spells. Overrule Thought can just deck your opponent, because importantly here, because it counters target spell and has target player mill 3 cards, even if its target is no longer on the stack, the mill effect will still resolve, because the spell will try to resolve to the best of its ability. So you can cast something you don't care about, have Overrule Thought be cast in response to counter that spell, and then Overrule Thought, all of the copies can just target your opponent to just mill them out for a bunch of cards all at once. Seafloor Treasures as a 2 mana instant. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put 1 into hand, other into graveyard, and surfaces for 2 and a blue when you have 7 or more total cards in your graveyard. Just a little more card selection. Discern, same thing, just kind of some cantrip value. 1 mana to draw a card at instant speed, 3 mana to flash it back. 1 copy of Stargazing to scry 1 and draw a card at sorcery speed, and then you can discard a card to return it to your hand, but you can't play another Stargazing in that turn. 2 copies of Chart the Cosmos, more cantrip value, more card selection, just 1 mana, draw a card for a sorcery, and you make a chart token to go find another land. And then a full playset of Deafening Clarion as the primary anti-aggro tool besides Clash at Orith Cross. 3 mana, deal 3 to each creature, or give your creatures lifelink. Ladder mode, not too relevant here, but could do some stuff with the soldier tokens, perhaps. Really, though, this is deal 3 to your Inner Rings Pupils and your Unmaker of Thoughts. Otherwise, 1 mountain, 2 plains, 3 islands are the basic suite here, with 3 copies of Primal Fissure. There's 3 additional copies of fetches in Silent Lakefront, owing to the higher prevalence of islands and plains here, as well as the fact that this is just another counterspell in the later turns in the game. So not an awful fetch to draw in the deeper parts of the turn cycles. And then backed up by 4 copies each of Misty Peak, Windbeaten Stones, and then 3 copies of Lucent Basin, less white-blue lands because of the white-blue fetches, I believe. And also just the more prominent basic counts there. And then 2 copies of Rousing Path, trying to really lean in on a lot of these spells paying blue mana, since while a lot of the interactive suite is based around red and white, a lot of the value generation is blue-based, and especially in the early turns, the blue spells are a little more important. So Rousing Path giving that additional fast mana, and then can cycle later on if it's just a later draw. So with all of that said and done, let's jump into Game 1. So in Game 1, we have opening hands drawn here. Nyx is the higher seed and has chosen to play. I do not know if either player mulligans yet, but let's take a look at what their hands are starting off here for their first 7s. Nyx has 3 Swamps, Transcendent Council as 2 of, 1 Unmaker of Thought, and 1 Inner Rings Pupil. I could see Nyx mulliganing this. This is a pretty slow hand, and there's no guarantee that they get to do anything other than Unmaker of Thought. I think if you're Nyx, you really want either your draw 2s or your duresses in the early turns of the game. These creatures really start mattering more once your opponent is out of resources, and so I think the primary goal should be to start really hammering your opponent's resources sooner. Getting to duress alongside Unmaker of Thought is ideal. By comparison. So yeah, I have to imagine Nyx likely mulligans this. Chip, meanwhile, is on 5 lands, 2 Deafening Clarions, so I suspect we're about to see both players go to 6. Let's hit play and see what they end up choosing to do. I'm going to fast forward through this a little bit. Nyx ends up choosing to keep. Chip mulls to 6, though. We see Windbeaten Stones, Island, Primal Fissure, Chart the Cosmos, Clash at Orith Cross, Deafening Clarion, countermeasures. Ends up being the Deafening Clarion going away. I think that is the reasonable choice here. So we can now anticipate seeing a Chart the Cosmos on 1 from Chip, perhaps, followed by Primal Fissure, hold up, either represent a quench, or cracking the chart token to go get a land from deck. I am curious to know what Nyx's plan is here in the early game. It might just be play Unmaker of Thought on 2. Does seem like Nyx has recorded this, so good time to note that if you are interested in seeing this match from Nyx's perspective, check out the info card right about now to tune in to this match from their perspective. They will have some more insight as to their particular thought process than I would have. And I'll have that linked at the end of this video as well, in the end card. So kicking things off, Nyx goes for a Swamp and passes on over to Chip here. We're going to speed things up a little bit. Draw is a Seafloor Treasures for Chip. Does, in fact, go for the Chart the Cosmos on 1 here. Draws a Discern. So definitely finding those cantrips early on here. Passes over to Nyx. Nightfall is the draw. Still no fourth land, but does go for the Unmaker of Thought, just hand attack the opponent. If I'm deciding here, I think it's pitch Seafloor Treasures. Or maybe you pitch Discern. Because I think like Seafloor Treasures, it's not going to be as castable immediately. Does end up pitching the Discern, yeah. Because Seafloor Treasures makes more use out of your mana next turn if you choose not to crack the chart token. Rousing Path is the draw here. So it may now be the case that you go Rousing Path as land for turn, hold the Primal Fisher. Yeah, Rousing Path is the play. Nyx does find that fourth land, but has not much to do besides play Swamp and attack. So Chip is going to be in the clear to start, either digging a little deeper with the chart token or with Seafloor Treasures. I do wonder, given the chart token, if it might have been better to go for the Primal Fisher anyways, though, just on account of chart token being able to crack, and then as you start building up lands, Rousing Path might be better to just discard. But dual lands are always just reasonable enough, so I can kind of understand it. And this way you get to save the chart token for later without having to worry about trying to find the fifth land as urgently, and can use Seafloor Treasures to try and just clear a card from the top, put that into the graveyard, and if it's got flashback or surface, that's some additional value. Chip is thinking here, though, so might be an interesting choice. We'll see. Ends up putting Seafloor Treasures number 2 to hand, Windbeaten Stones to graveyard, so would not have wanted that fifth land anyways. Crusaris now the draw here. I have to imagine it's Primal Fisher pass. No reason to run out Crusaris here, no reason to run out Seafloor Treasures, no reason to run out the chart token activation. Opponent draws Karaz Observatory. Oh boy. Not something that can be activated immediately by any measure, but that is going to apply real pressure to Discern and Seafloor Treasures here. That is value on the table that can be taken off the table. Gets in for 1, then 4 mana for a Nightfall here. Pretty measured call here from Nyx to prioritize the Nightfall over the Councils and Inner Rings Pupil, because ultimately what these things need to function as is as resource pressure, and right now there's no resources on board for Council to pressure. There's too many cards in hand for Inner Rings Pupil to pressure, and most importantly, if Chip has a Quench here, this Nightfall is the card I think you are least upset about having quenched if you're in Nyx's position. So very wise call there on what creature to use. Chip, meanwhile, activating the chart token, finds a Silent Lakefront, and then is going to go ahead and crack the Primal Fisher. Shuffle things up a little bit, though not really much known in the library up to that point. Gets a Plane, so now has all 3 colors online. Finds a Misty Peak as land for turn, or as draw for turn, rather. If Chip decides to ignore the current board state, Chip could get away with Misty Peak or Windbeaten Stones this turn into Clash at Orith Cross on 5. Would definitely punish the opponent trying to potentially run stuff out, but would put something on the board that gets easily destroyed by Transcendent Council on Nyx's turn 6. Does go for Windbeaten Stones and just passes holding stuff up. I anticipate we're going to see a Discern here, honestly, from Graveyard. And the reason I say Discern is because Karaz Observatory putting pressure on Graveyard is a factor in this particular matchup. If Karaz Observatory doesn't get activated this turn, I think you are just in a position to need to pull the trigger on getting value out of your graveyard cards while you can. The tension there is that it means that Seafloor Treasures doesn't get as much use, but using your flashback spells while you can seems important. Though I could also see Seafloor Treasures number 2 getting played from hand this turn just to get you 2 7 cards in graveyard, because the surface cost on Seafloor Treasures is going to be harder to meet given Karaz Observatory applying pressure to graveyard. My anticipation here is this is going to be, Transcendent Council comes down. Chip says, okay. And then we're going to see Seafloor Treasures here. 3 mana. It is going to be Discern. Okay. So deciding that, Seafloor Treasure is probably not going to get surfaced anytime soon, better to just draw a card off of this Discern before it gets hit by the Observatory. I think that is pretty reasonable. It does make Observatory's target a little easier to pin down. But if you just hold the second Seafloor Treasures for when you can guarantee that you can double cast it for 5, then that's not the end of the world to just lose this one Seafloor Treasures to Cross Observatory. Goes for Clash at Orith Cross, pops the board, but Nyx is untapping here with 6th land here, so can go for Transcendent Council or Innerings Pupil, either alongside Unmaker or alongside the Innerings Pupil effect. Goes for Council here to pop the Clash at Orith Cross. I can kind of see the rationale here. This means that countermeasures can no longer defeat it. Ukius Crusaris can no longer defeat it. And this is the thing that is more resilient to the particular removal available. So certainly better than Innerings Pupil in the face of something like Ukius Crusaris. And then just chooses to use Cross Observatory to hit the Seafloor Treasures, deeming the Unmaker of Thought possibly just more worthwhile to attach to an instant or sorcery at the time being to get the double use out of its effect. Chip draws a Primal Fissure for turn. Can play Fissure tapped, but does need to do something about this Transcendent Council. Either way, cannot get a 6th mana here, which is really awkward for the purposes of Eltanon, which would really want to come down X's 4 here. I think if you are in Chip's shoes here, I think you hold Electronic Countermeasures plus Ukius Crusaris to just pop the Council in a pinch. Or otherwise, just Primal Fissure and pass. Maybe you can Silent Lakefront, counter, gain 3 life. But you're going to 4 here, I think. Unmaker of Thought number 2 is the draw. Goes right into combat. No sacrifice, so Council gets to bash in, take Chip to 4. And Cross Observatory could push Chip to 3. Is going to eat the Chart the Cosmos, take Chip to 3. It's possible that Nyx just decides there's no need to apply additional pressure on board right now. Oh, and we're seeing an Unmaker of Thought come down. It is Unmaker. Let's see what Chip has to say about that. Chip is thinking. I think the thing I value least here if I'm in Chip's shoes is probably Clash at Mistrit Vale. Is going to Silent Lakefront that. Okay, so gain the 3 right now while you know that there's something you can counter. And then, Nyx decides the second Unmaker really wants to be attached to an instant or sorcery. And this is still really hard to justify using 2 removal spells on if you're in Chip's shoes, so there is a small advantage here. Chip could run out Clash at Mistrit Vale, then just cast Discern, cast Electronic Countermeasures. Is gonna go for Path of Stillness X's 4. Okay. Is just going to exile the Transcendent Council. So Eltanon now on an adventure. Removal spells preserved. So this was 6 mana, kill a 4-drop, but that is lethal damage no longer available. Innerings Pupil coming down. Chip is going to have to discard a card. I think it's very easy to just pitch. Maybe pitch Seafloor Treasures because this Cross Observatory is online. But yeah. Clash at Mistrit Vale now gets to come down next turn. Ukius Crusaris plus Discern available. Does pitch the Seafloor Treasures. Does get that hit by a Cross Observatory. All right. And Chip is in a sketchy position, but starting to turn the corner. We see blue and 1 and 2. It is going to be the Clash at Mistrit Vale. Now we're going to see, is it Deafening Clarion or is it Ucus Crusaris. I think it's got to be Crusaris here. Path of Exoneration, kill the Inner Ring's pupil, and then you can hold up Discern to make a second 1/1. Crusaris is indeed going to put Chip up to 8. Makes the 1/1 off of Clash at Mistrit Vale. And then Discern just gets to be held here. I think... Oh, no! Duress is such a good draw here for Nyx in terms of resource denial. So, Duress with Unmaker of Thought chanted on. This means that Duress gets to strip away something from Chip's hand, and then Unmaker makes the discard happen, and then Unmaker is going to happen again when cast from exile. So this is take something from your hand, then discard 2 cards. Well, it's only going to be discard 1 card because... Oh, no. Yeah, so casts Discern, gets that second soldier, replaces the draw, but Deafening Clarion, Electronic Countermeasures. You just take countermeasures and then guarantee that Clarion gets discarded, and you don't really care about the second Clarion right now. Yep, countermeasures gone. All right. And question now becomes, do you even care about running out the Unmaker of Thought? It's not doing any damage right now. You might as well just hold it to pressure any additional resources that might come around. No harm in running it out, I suppose, but yeah, bigger priority is to just get the Discern here with Kara's Observatory. Whew. And now we have reached the resource grind, has deemed Unmaker of Thought more valuable as pressure on Chip's hand than pressure on the board. Silent Lakefront is the draw, not very meaningful here. It is entirely possible that the play here for Chip is... Actually, not even just possible. It is very advisable that the play is, yeah, both at Clash at Mistrit Vale, forget the damage to the opponent, get that electronic countermeasures back. You might not be able to corrupt it necessarily right away, but what you can do is pick that countermeasures up, insulate yourself from an Unmaker of Thought, and have this available to clear the Clash at Mistrit Vale or another battle later on. So passes after getting the countermeasures back. Nyx draws Transcendent Council. I think if this Unmaker of Thought resolves, yeah, you just say K, discard the Deafening Clarion, and then Transcendent Council cannot get on the board through Silent Lakefront. Does Nyx go for the Transcendent Council here? I think it's big game for Chip if the Council goes on the stack here, because that puts Chip to 10. We see Nyx thinking, what's coming down? It is between Council and Kara's Observatory. Cannot do both this turn. If you leave Clash at Mistrit Vale up, it is not going to be Transcendent Council. Eats one of the Deafening Clarions from Graveyard and passes. All right, Council sticking around in hand for a moment. Chip decides does not want to run out this electronic countermeasures right now. Draws a Wind-Beaten Stones. Only sends 1 in at the Clash. All right. Nyx, not in a position to want to trade the Unmaker here for the attacker, is going to probably use that to represent an attacker of their own. Draws a Damn to Hell. This is another thing that competes with Transcendent Council for turn. This could fire off, clear both soldiers, but no real reason to do that. Better to save this. Better to save this for either going to find a second Kara's Observatory. Oh, was pulling the trigger on that. Oh, sorry, was pulling the trigger on Transcendent Council. Did get countered by Silent Lakefront. And then the second Deafening Clarion gone to Karaz Observatory. Third Deafening Clarion has now been drawn. So it's just countermeasures in Clarion. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. One more land gets Ukius Crusaris on the board. That would be big if it can hit the board here. 7-9 is a really tough stat line for Nyx to punch through. Twilight Ambush is the draw. Can at least pick off this Soldier token to deny the last point of damage on Clash at Mistrit Vale. Eats the Clash at Orith Cross from Graveyard here, and just passes, holding up these instants. Offset Daemon is the draw. My goodness, that is going to be very helpful for Chip getting to start turning things around a little bit. Yeah. I think if you just play this and put it on 3, it's possible that it gets hit by Damn to Hell, but you just don't really care. Maybe even put it on B, just knowing that your opponent's probably going to want to pick it off the board. We do see Overflow. Where is it going? It goes on A. Wow. So just really anticipating immediate removal here. Goes into combat. Soldier at Clash at Mistrit Vale. Offset Daemon at Nyx. We're going to see Twilight Ambush on the Soldier to deny this last proc on Clash at Mistrit Vale. Only single blue mana being represented here. Nyx down to 17, Chip up to 10. This is going to pad out Chip's life total in the face of Karaz Observatory, which only has 5 more cards it can pick off anyways. Nightfall is the draw. Nightfall could conceivably come down here, but as just make a 4/4 blocker for the Offset Daemon. Better to block the Daemon than necessarily kill it with Overflow. But if you Damn to Hell the Daemon, it's very possible that the correct play from Chip is just to countermeasures Daemon in response. Oh, it is going to be Nightfall. It is going to be going for the 4/4. Yep, going for the dragon. I think if you're Chip here, you play countermeasures at end step. Yeah, countermeasures, pick off the dragon. Get the top card because it is corrupted. And it's an Overrule Thought face up. Unfortunate hit here for Chip, but does at least dig past the counterspell, which we're reaching the point of the game where this is going to have trouble finding too much in the way of targeting. Definitely would wish that this is in hand over Deafening Clarion, though. Second Clash at Mistrit Vale is the draw. Ooh, that is very good here. So Offset Daemon gets to push Nyx down to 14. The Soldier token gets to clear the first Clash at Mistrit Vale, and then the second Clash. Actually, if you don't care about the discount, maybe even play out the second Clash immediately, so that way you can attack it with Offset Daemon. Pick up countermeasures once again. You see 1, 2. It is a Clash at Mistrit Vale. That costs 3. Clash is not defeated yet. Interesting. Defeating Clash at Mistrit Vale #1 with the Offset Daemon choosing not to pick anything up. Oh, so that way on Maker of Thought can't take the electronic countermeasures out of hand. Oh, and is going to Overrule Thought their own countermeasures, milling themselves. Oh, to try and dig a little bit deeper. Get 4 soldiers. and then mills 2 more Overrule Thoughts and an Elucent Basin. So there's most of the counter magic out of here. We've seen both Silent Lakefronts. We've seen 3 of the 4 Overrule Thoughts. Rostabal, the Enduring Star, is the draw here. Damn to Hell can really mop this board up at least. Yes, we're going to see Damn to Hell here. I imagine 3 here and then kill 4 tokens, then Karaz Observatory, eat the Offset Daemon. Nick says everything minus a white soldier. Yeah, so 4 soldiers die plus the Offset Daemon. 1 gets left behind. I don't know why Nick's paid 7 for that. I think Nyx is assuming that this is X and a black and it's total mana, maybe, but that's... I don't know why Nyx paid 7 for that. Windbeaten Stone's a pretty awkward draw here for Chip, but does get to at least swing the soldier in at Clash at Mistrit Vale. Plays the land out here. Oh, it's going to shock it in for Ukius Chrysaris. Yeah. Chrysaris in play, 7/9. When it's dealt damage, you gain that much life. And it deals that much damage to anything else. Clash at Mistrit Vale is going to pick up this electronic countermeasures. Rostabal can make that go away, but that is not going to deal with the 8 power on board. Die as thou wilt, not going to get through Ukius Chrysaris because of this soldier sticking around. We will see Rostabal pick off the countermeasures, but there's going to be no exchange of life totals here. And this is starting to really swing in favor of Chip here. Pay 2 mana, hit that Offset Demon. Damon out of here. And Chip is down to 9, but has a real clock here. And any non-land card is a great draw. Ukius Chrysaris, maybe not the best, but in a pinch, this is 3 direct damage and gain 6 now. As well as... it can be 3 direct damage off of shooting Ukius Chrysaris, or it can defeat Clash at Mistrit Vale if needed. Get those spells discounted by 4. Is there any reason to discount spells by 4? Not particularly. It really only matters for Clash at Orith Cross. So yeah, it doesn't even need to defeat Clash at Mistrit Vale number 2. Can just kind of hold on to that. Nyx does draw a Past Unresolved. That is one of the draw 2s finally coming up here. 2 mana draw 2. Chip pauses before saying it resolves. Very judicious here. Draws another Past Unresolved and an Inner Rings Pupil. Mills Night's Whisper Swamp. Sorry. So milling a land, milling another draw 2. They're going to go for another draw 2, it looks like. Oh, they thought about it, but they might not. Past Unresolved is going to be getting on the stack again. So 2 mana draw 2 once more. Lose to draw Swamp Nightfall. Nightfall not necessarily going to do it. Plays the Swamp. Inner Rings people? It's going to be Nightfall. Making a dragon. I don't know if that matters. We see Chip thinking here. Could just pull the trigger on Path of Exoneration here. Point it at Ukius Chrysaris to shoot 3 directly. Wow, no, it was going to clear the Clash at Mistrit Vale. Why? There's really no reason. You only have 1 other Clash at Orith Cross for it to discount. The only real reason to keep 2 clashes defeated would be for one of the 2 remaining Transcendent Councils, so it's easier to sacrifice 1, 2. But at that point, you could just sacrifice the one that's at 3 defense. That's interesting. I feel like getting the 3 direct damage with Ukius Chrysaris is just better, and then you gain 6 life instead of 3. Weird. Well, it does make the 2 tokens. Does stockpile the additional Ukius Chrysaris, And Chart the Cosmos is now the draw. Does seem like we're coming up on the end here. Chart does replace itself and create another chart token. So that is going to be effectively 3 mana to draw a card and then go find the next land in your deck, which insulates a little bit from hand attack. Is going to just swing wide, lose one of the tokens to the dragon, but connect for 9. And yeah, no, if Ukius Crusaris here, Path of Exoneration, had shot the Ukius Crusaris, that would have forced the dragon to block Ukius Crusaris here. Yeah, I'm very curious to know as to why the choice was Path of Exoneration, the Mistrit Veil, instead of the Unicorn Spirit here. Opponent thinking a little bit deeper. Might be Chart the Cosmos. It's just going to be the second Ukius Crusaris. Past Unresolved's the draw, and I do think that is curtains for Nyx here. Takes 2 with Past Unresolved. Swamp and Transcendent Council just not going to matter. And that is going to be game 1 to Chip here. Players unlock sideboards, and we are going to hop on over back to the deck list view to talk about those sideboards now. So, starting off with Nyx's sideboard, we've got 1 more copy of Damned to Hell, 2 more copies of Twilight Ambush, a playset of Crucible of the Burning Sun, 2 copies of Golden Bloom of the Silenced, 2 Karaz Lay Spires, and then 2 each of Go Blank and Data Wipe. 3 mana, discard 2 cards from the opponent, and then have them exile their graveyard. Cards I could see coming out here in this particular matchup, Twilight Ambush, Damned to Hell, do seem a little awkward. I could maybe even see Die As Thou Wilt coming out. But otherwise, a lot of their interaction really does benefit from, like, Inner Ring's Pupil, Transcendent Council, Unmaker, Nightfall, Rostaball, all pressuring hand primarily is really nice. And then Nightfall not pressuring hand, but does put a body on the board that is meaningful pressure. So I anticipate potentially anywhere from 5 to 9 sideboard cards coming in here, depending on whether or not they board out the Die As Thou Wilt. I could even see them keeping some copies of Damned to Hell just as swamp cyclers to go find the Karaz Observatories. But I do think the Twilight Ambushes are coming out. I anticipate these 2 slots are going to come out as well, at least in some quantities. As far as cards that could come up, I see 8 cards that might be worth playing. Those being the 2 ofs of Golden Bloom of the Silenced, Karaz Lay Spire, and the hand attack spells. Go Blank, Data Wipe, really good at both denying resources available in graveyard, which can be awkward with Karaz Observatory, but is relevant for shutting off some of these flashback spells and also just getting things out of the opponent's hand. And then Golden Bloom of the Silenced has really meaningful text as a way to shut off the effects of battles. Karaz Lay Spire, really meaningful because it just is a 2/4 that shreds all of the specific card out of your opponent's deck. So you could just choose something that hasn't come up yet and guarantee it won't come up any point in the future. As for Chip here, their sideboard is a bit smaller here. 3 Primordial Gateway, 2 Ulfven's Skylord, a playset of Savvy Smith, playset of Shock, and 2 Fateful Ascents. I am actually not quite sure what the sideboard plan is here, but let's talk about what they might want to be boarding out. The big one here is probably Deafening Clarion, not really particularly tuned to this matchup. The other board wipes, Eltanon and Clash at Orithcross, are a little bit better, but Clarion doesn't check any of their 4-drops. It really only checks... it checks the 2 copies of Inner Ring's Pupil, but otherwise it only checks Unmaker of Thought, and that is a 1/1, so you're not really wanting to Clarion that. So I have to imagine these are coming out. I could maybe see the Seafloor Treasures paving the way because this is just something you are almost never going to surface. So if you're really desperate for the extra 2 sideboard slots, I could see that coming down. But otherwise, I think the deck mostly wants to stay intact. Maybe offset Daemon just because of the graveyard pressure, but it is still just a 4-mana 3/3 that gains you life every time it hits. And gets to do so immediately. Primordial Gateway is just straight up not for this matchup. I don't think Ulfen Skylord is particularly relevant for this matchup. This is more aimed at the blue control decks. I could maybe see Savvy Smith doing some work. Just as you cast spells, make some 1/1s rummage away, generate some mana could be good. And I could maybe see the Fateful Ascents being relevant just because it is a better catch-all creature removal option. So if I had to guess, it's going to be down the Deafening Clarions, down maybe the Seafloor Treasures for the playset of Savvy Smith and the 2 Fateful Ascents. With all of that said and done, let's take a look now at Game 2. So, this is presumably going to be Nyx on play again. We do get a confirmation on that. 3 lands for Nyx. Let's look at these hands before they decide mulligan choices. 2 Swamps, Karaz Observatory for Nyx with Golden Bloom of the Silenced, Duress, Past Unresolved, and Night's Whisper. Were these games in... No, these games were not in reverse order. I'd seen a comment from Chip about how Chip dodged the draw twos in game 2. I might have misread that, or I might be misremembering, because I believe this is game 2 because we saw them unlock sideboards at the end of the last game. But yeah, we see Past Unresolved and Night's Whisper here, so I must just be misremembering. But yeah, we get confirmation that Golden Bloom did in fact come in. Not too shocked there. Also confirmation that Fateful Ascent came in. We see this is a 4-lander for Chip. Primal Fissure, Windbeaten Stones, and 2 islands. That does cast all of the spells available right now. You go get a Plains off of the Primal Fissure for Fateful Ascent if needed. And otherwise, islands easily cast Overrule Thought. Windbeaten Stones helps you get the other of your 2 non-blue colors for Offset Daemon. This is a pretty reasonable hand. It is a little fragile to a turn 1 Duress, but you lose interaction and maintain the resource of Offset Daemon, so I think you don't really care about the Duress if you are Chip here. So I imagine this is going to be a keep from both players. Nick's double-checking to make sure they know what they sideboarded, it looks like. Could be that they're talking about how they sideboarded in their video. So Nyx decides to keep, does fire off the turn 1 Duress off of Karaz Observatory. I imagine it's going to be Overrule Thought getting taken here. But if I'm Nyx, I'm not happy to see the Fateful Ascent boarded in. Hand's pretty resilient to Fateful Ascent, though. So yeah, I think Overrule Thought's just the safe pick. Does, in fact, end up being what gets taken here. So Chip gets to draw a Clash at Orith Cross. Big card to have dodge the hand attack here. And then he gets to play out Windbeaten Stones. Go Blank is the draw for Nyx. Get more confirmation on boarding here. And then going to go for one of the draw twos rather than an early Golden Bloom. Draws 2 lands. Not the worst thing in the world. That means that Nyx now gets to guarantee additional land drops moving forward. Can Go Blank next turn. Clash number 2 is the draw here, so that is both clashes developed. No need to run out the island over the Primal Fissure because you just don't have the blue spell to play. And then Rustball is the pickup here, so could see Past Unresolved into Path of Oblivion. It looks like that's going to be what it happens. So draw 2, another Duress and Night's Whisper. Might not need to go for Rustball. Mills another Past Unresolved and reveals Data Wipes. This is looking like Data Wipes and Go Blanks came in as the full playset overall. Does go for Rostoball rather than the Duress. Pretty measured interaction here. Get rid of a card of Chip's discretion, gets rid of the Clash at Orith Cross, and I think if you are Nyx here seeing the Clash get discarded, you're wondering, what is there going to be in hand that's worth keeping over Clash at Orith Cross? And the answer is a second Clash. So Island gets developed here, but that's only really going to enable Discern. And we do see a little bit of punish here from this Discern by way of, don't have mana up to do anything else with any blue cards you draw. So no reason to run it out here. Crucible the Burning Sun is the draw. Wow, boarded in Crucible. I suppose there's a lot of incidental graveyard effects, and this does, just represent a scry engine later on. So it's not a dead card when it stops being a graveyard hate tool. Crucible has the trigger pulled on it. Duress has the trigger pulled on it. Reveals Clash at Orthcross, Discern, Fateful Ascent, and Offset Daemon. I imagine this is just going to be the Clash here. Takes that interaction out of... Oh, it's going to be Fateful Ascent. Interesting. Fateful Ascent gets pitched. I feel like you just want to deny the Clash at Orthcross. Just keep that from ever being a problem. And then if you do have the Karaz Leyspires, that is one fewer card name you have to worry about. Goes for the Golden Bloom of the Silenced. Naming Offset Daemon. That is just a 4-mana 3/3 now. Goes for the Discern. Draws a Windbeaten Stones. And a Savvy Smith is the draw for turn. I think you just go Island Offset Daemon. You don't really care that it's a 3/3 right now. They don't have anything pressuring you. You want to get something developed here. Wow, is going to Discern Flashback instead. Or was thinking about it. I think you just develop a 3/3. But I can understand why Chip is mulling it over. With Go Blank available here, it does mean that developing the 3/3 is pretty painful. In the blind here, I suppose one of the things that is worth considering is just the fact that we know Nyx revealed that Night's Whisper that Data Wipe came in, so it's safe to assume that there might be one available in hand. We'll see. 5th land from Nyx could represent Go Blank plus Crucible here. Crucible immediately online if that's the case, to start scrying one for Nyx, giving some solid selection. Go Blank looks like it's coming out. It is going to be Go Blank. So Discern is going to get flashed back here. Draws an island. I think at this point you just pitch Island Offset Daemon. That's the freest option available to you. Yep, Island Offset Daemon discarded, so it's Clash at Orthcross, Savvy Smith, and Island against the world. Then we see 2 mana. It's going to be Crucible, right? It could be on Maker of Thought, but I feel like you probably want to play on Maker of Thought before the Go Blank at that point. And the only damage dealt to either player has been through Nyx's draw twos. It is Crucible. It is going to be end step Crucible trigger. Going to go ahead and scry 1. Thinking over what they want to keep. They put Karaz Observatory to the bottom. That seems pretty wise at this point. Crucible keeping Graveyard locked off means that that's not going to get any immediate value anyways. Ukius Crusaris is the draw here. Could run out Island Savvy Smith. And then just hold the Ukius Crusaris. Is in fact what happens here. So Ukius Crusaris getting to sit here. If Unmaker of Thought is the play, Duress is the draw. So is going to go Duress, staple on Unmaker of Thought. Why staple on Unmaker of Thought? If Duress takes something out of hand, Unmaker fails to function. Oh no, it's Night's Whisper Unmaker of Thought, so force the discard. Just pitches the Clash here, so that goes to exile. Night's Whisper draws Swamp Transcendent Council. And then Duress gets to pick off the Ukius Crusaris. Whew. That dodges Duress. My mistake. I said picks off the Ukius Crusaris. Important thing about adventure creatures, they are creatures in the face of a Duress. Very judicious play from Chip there to preserve the Crusaris in the face of the Duress deck. is now playing with that face up, but that just means that Nyx knows Unmaker of Thought is not going to find purchase. And we might finally get to see a player swing in with a creature this game. Looks like Nyx put out the Swamp after scrying, and then Chip pointed out the scry had already happened, so... yeah, there's just going to be a missed land drop from Nyx here. Offset Daemon is the draw offline because of Golden Bloom of the Silenced. Unfortunate. So that is going to be 2/2 Nyx here. Is that 4 mana for a 3/3? That is 4 mana for a 3/3. Let's go. Good, honest beats here. Pass and Resolved is the draw. Swamp is land for turn. Transcendent Council is going to kill that Offset Daemon for sure. Yup. Daemon down. Then main 2, Past Unresolved just draws 2 more. So draw 2, lose 2, mill 2. Exile 2 Nightfalls. Whew. That is an unfortunate mill for Nyx, but did draw a Nightfall and a second Transcendent Council. That is going to be a big heaping amount of trouble for Chip here. And now that Fateful Ascent being gone is really good for Chip. Really good for Nyx, as is true of the 2 Clashes that are gone. Rousing Path is not a relevant draw. Could cycle it maybe, but that doesn't really leave a lot of room open. Could use Ukiu's Crusaris with Savvy Smith, just shoot the Transcendent Council. Is going to just cycle here, finds an Overrule Thought. Yeah. It's just going to be a little shy of really doing a whole lot. So gets to swing in, take Nyx to 8. No attack. What? What's the reason to hold back? Transcendent Council kills it anyways. Oh no, the data wipe. Overrule Thought doesn't really matter now anyways. Goes to combat, kills the Savvy Smith, Council tapped. Oh, this data wipe is so brutal. Is going to go for the Unmaker instead. I suspect it's going to be Ukiu's Crusaris getting discarded here. Oh, it is going to be in response to trigger cast Ukiu's Crusaris. Yeah. All right. So Chip does gain the 3, doesn't have to discard now, and gets to kill the 1/1. All right. And Overrule Thought is preserved, but second Transcendent Council or the Nightfall, yeah, it goes for Nightfall instead. Nightfall just clear to come through, and Chip has very limited outs here. Unfortunately, a draw of Eltanon does not clear everything here. Electronic Countermeasures doesn't check a 6/6 either. My goodness, this thing is so beefy. It is so hard for red to kill this. It's so hard for most colors to kill this right now, actually. All right. Nyx draws Karaz. Leyspire can just name Path of Scales, get all of those out of here. Swing for 10 first, maybe? Just for kicks? Yeah, goes for combat, swings in 10, see if they go for the countermeasures. If they do, yeah, it's going to be countermeasures on the dragon here, it looks like. So only 6 damage to Chip, but that is still a 4-turn clock. Rapidly about to become 3. Oh, I did hear about this, that Nyx lost connection for a moment. Here we are. Electronic countermeasures IRL. That's great. And we do see the data wipe come out here and fight over Overrule Thought. Overrule Thought does get used. Nyx just doesn't bother paying. No real reason to. Chooses to mill. Or, sorry, does mill as well, regardless, doesn't need to pay because the hand's empty, and that was the goal. Milled Swamp, Night's Whisper. Yep, Nyx is resolving Crucible. Puts a Swamp to the bottom. Seems like a sound plan. Wow, Discern is the draw, finds a Savvy Smith, but that's not going to cut it on its own. And then, yeah, Council just gets to keep doing the beatdowns. Past Unresolved is the draw here. Goes for... Could just go for the second Transcendent Council instead of Karaz Leyspire, just because that is lethal next turn. Does go for the Karaz Leyspire. Does get to see what's going on over at the opponent's side of the field. Does name Path of Scales. So that is going to reveal Chip's library. We'll get a chance to see how they boarded here. Chip thinking it over. Chip could concede to conceal information here. Game is very quickly being handed off to Nyx, but does in fact choose to reveal information. Reveals that we do see the full playset of Savvy Smiths. We do not see the Seafloor Treasures. So it looks like I was correct. Seafloor Treasures came out, and Deafening Clarions came out for the Savvy Smiths and the Fateful Ascents. I know how to sideboard. Let's go. All right. Goes for Past Unresolved, mills 2 swamps, draws Innerings People in a swamp here. And connect for 6, chip down to 11. Only so much that can be done here. Nyx going for the Scry. Puts Swamp to the bottom again. Man, Crucible is so good. This is such a good rest in peace. I think if you have to choose between paying white for an enchantment and then getting like the immediate value, or like if you can just have the like gradual pressure the stuff that's currently in the graveyard, or just get this down early enough, and then it's just a Scry engine, and you don't have to be locked into a color to use it. It's so powerful. Second Crucible here, also not a dead draw, unlike the second copy of Rest in Peace would be. Man, Crucible is such a good hate card. I feel like if you're just looking to play any sort of graveyard-related strategy, you just have to be quick, because otherwise Crucible ruins you. So, yeah, chip down to 5. It was the Primal Fisher draw for this last turn. Savvy Smith still hiding in hand, so not going to come down. Looks like, yeah, second Transcendent Council, so you got to clear both. This does not remove Chip's outs. One of Eltanon, 1 in 33, presuming that Chip cracks the Primal Fisher before combat. Nyx keeps top, does crack the Primal Fisher, so we're looking at a 1 in 33 to find the Eltanon off the top. Eltanon off the top, X's 4 is not going to be appearing here. That is Savvy Smith draw, and Chip is going to pack things up. That is players at 1 and 1 going into Game 3. Chip is going to be able to decide play or draw at long last in this finals series. So let's see how that game shakes out. Can't imagine too much sideboard changes. Chip is going to be on the play this time instead of on the draw. Looking at these opening 7s, I have to imagine this is going to be a mulligan for Chip. Single Primal Fisher plus Chart the Cosmos could turn into 3 lands over time through Primal Fisher plus Chart drawing a second land, and then the Chart token being cracked on turn 2. That would be backed up by Ukius Crusaris. The one of Eltanon, which is very relevant, dodges Duresses, as we established with Ukius Crusaris. Offset Daemon, Clash at Mistrit Vale, and Savvy Smith. Clash and Chart, actually the only things that get hit by a Duress, and if Chart draws a land, Duress does not get the choice it would normally have in this matchup. On Nyx's side of things, two-lander here, Crucible of the Burning Sun, Data Wipe, Duress, Entering People, Nightfall. I suspect this is going to be a mulligan from both players, but I would not be stunned to see Chip take a risky keep. I suspect they're going to both go to 6, though. Chip is, in fact, going to go to 6. Chip's new hand is Island, Lucent Basin, Primal Fisher, Electronic Countermeasures, Offset Daemon, Savvy Smith. I think keep this, pitch, and Island seems reasonable. Nyx is thinking. Not a whole lot this hand can do, but turn 1 Duress, turn 2 Crucible is not awful. Nyx does, in fact, keep. Crucible offering the scry here, doing a lot to sell this hand on being able to find additional lands. And being on the draw doesn't hurt. Lucent Basin tapped means that countermeasures is going to be gone here because Duress is going to eat it. Who needs to dig for the 3rd land? Found off the top by Nyx here. So Duress is going to reveal the 2 creatures, take the countermeasures, and call it a day. Ship on over to Chip here. And then this data wipe already looking very juicy. Wow. The Duress bug has happened. Countermeasures the draw after countermeasures was the discard. Runs out the Savvy Smith. Yeah, Nyx has just no reason to not run out Crucible here. Gonna take a couple turns to come online as a value engine. Are they looking at hitting themselves? Oh, they're targeting... they are going to target Chip. So, Primal Fisher out of here. The draw is a 4th land. So, Savvy Smith gets to attack in for 2. Could see Misty Peak just coming down here. It is going to be the second island, or the first island, the second blue source. Coming in untapped here, so that way countermeasures can be played in response targeting a creature, maybe? Kraz Observatory comes down, Data Wipe, I imagine just takes out countermeasures plus Misty Peak. Let's see. It is going to be countermeasures Misty Peak, so Offset Daemon hiding out here. If another land can be drawn, then Chip is in it. But Daemon does look a little risky when you consider the Nightfall. And actually, no, Daemon's not going to matter. Chip, sorry. Oh, no, Daemon could matter. Oh, second 4-drop drawn is not that good, though. Savvy Smith cracks in, down to 16, just has to pass. Entering People can pick off one of those cards in hand. Knight's Whisper is the draw. I suspect it's just going to be Entering's Pupil stall out this Savvy Smith and make the Offset Daemon get discarded. But if Chip can find an untapped land, Path of Scales is a very real draw here. Entering's Pupil is in fact going to come down. I imagine Offset Daemon getting out of here. I'd seen Chip speculate this after the match, and I suspect I understand exactly why now. Had expressed the sentiment of regretting not discarding Offset Daemon to the go blank, the data wipe here. And I can see why, because this is the exact kind of draw that you want the 4th land for. The deck really starts to come alive at 4 mana. Either because you can play multiple cantrips much more comfortably, or because you have draws like Path of Scales with a lot more meaning to them when you have 4 lands in play than when you have 3. So I guess we'll see if and when Chip hits that 4th land, but for now, Path of Scales is going to be sitting in hand. Fateful Ascent is the draw, does get to pick off the Entering's Pupil, but don't love handing off the Chart token. Savvy Smith's going to make a 1/1. Start upping the pressure a little bit. But Chart does go over to Nyx here. And we are still in a bit of a squeeze here if we're Chip. Nyx down to 14. Untaps. Draws a Karaz Lay Spire. Oh no. can very comfortably just go for Lay Spire here. Named Path of Scales, I'm almost certain. And if Path of Scales is the name, that is devastating for Chip. It's possible that Nyx just names a cantrip instead, but I can't imagine that's the play over just getting rid of the best value engine your opponent could have. We do see Nyx thinking. What's it gonna be? It's gonna be Path of Scales. Oh, and that would be why Chip really regretted not holding on to the extra land. Oh, yes, that's Path of Scales gone from hand. The 3 in library gone as well. We'll at least get to replace the 1 in hand, but that is devastating. Ulfin Skylord was boarded in. Ooh, did I miss that in game 2? Wow. All right. I don't know if I love Ulfin Skylord. You need to have 6 mana up for this to not just die to a Nightfall. But, I mean, it could do work. But yeah, the Hexproof is just not really relevant in this matchup. This is not an opponent with targeted removal. Windbeaten Stones is the draw. Oh, Path of Scales would have done it. Draws another Nightfall, is going to crack the chart, go find a land, play the land, and then probably just pull the trigger on a Nightfall 4/4 dragon. Like, what's the rush to get rid of the Savvy Smith? I could see Nyx pulling the trigger on killing the Savvy Smith, though. It is going to go for dragon. Just get this game over with. Start pushing damage. Crucible continuing to do its job. Yeah. Overrule Thought is not a great draw here from Chip. Can at least dig a little bit deeper with Savvy Smith, pitch this Ulfin Skylord, but is not going to deal with Nightfall here. Entering's Pupil, also a solid draw. So 4 in the air. Could see Entering's Pupil or Nightfall here. What's it going to be? Oh, looks like they are undoing some of their thoughts. I think if you're looking at playing only one of those and you have the Night's Whisper to defend your last 2 mana, you might as well pull the trigger on Night's Whisper first, which looks to be what Nyx is thinking about. Yeah, and that is going to be what Nyx ends up doing. Draw before the 4-drop. This does now expose the 4-drop to an Overrule Thought, though. But it also begs the question, does Chip just want to try and counterspell this? Tax the mana a little bit. Chip says no. So that's going to be a draw to go blank past unresolved. Go blank, pretty good draw here. I think you just go for Entering's Pupil, right? Or maybe you go for Nightfall just because you've got the go blank plus Entering's Pupil. Excuse me. Go blank plus Entering's Pupil off 1 more land. It's going to be a 4-drop, it looks like. Oh, maybe not. Is it going to be... It's going to be go blank now. We're going to see the Overrule Thought, so that is going to counter go blank and mill Nyx for 3. Savvy Smith trigger also happens there. Did Chip not do anything with Savvy Smith? Yeah, Chip did nothing with Savvy Smith. That is a missed game action. Overrule Thought is the draw here from Chip, so an opportunity to take the same turn cycle as last time. Oh, yeah, Chip just caught the missed Smith trigger. Oh, Nyx is allowing Chip to go for it. Yeah, makes the 1/1. And then just passes on. I think if I'm in Chip's position there, I actually just discard. I would have wanted to discard the Ulfen Skylord, dig for things that actually start doing something right now. Because the Skylord does not help in this current situation. You are stuck on 4 lands. Skylord needs you to be at 6 to start doing work. Alrighty. That was the extra land. So Enring's people coming down here is going to probably force this Ulfen Skylord out of hand. Wow, pitches the overrule thought? Chip, you are not at a point of being able to play the Skylord yet. I guess Chip just really wants the draw off of the Skylord and so is hoping to find an extra land, but I don't know. I feel like you're just in too awkward of a position to lean on that. All right, Dragon gets in. And then just passes on over with Crucible of the Burning Sun trigger at end step. Thinking about their scry. Choosing not to play Past Unresolved into the open mana here, though is completely free to do so at this point. Keeps on... oh, they said keep. Oh, because they put Golden Bloom from top to top. Oh, good lord. Oh, Stargazing. That is a repeatable Savvy Smith trigger. We see Stargazing here. That's going to be Scry 1, draw, can discard a card to Savvy Smith to replace the Skylord beforehand. Could just make the 1/1. Could add mana. If you add mana and then Stargazing draws into an untapped land, you don't need to discard for Stargazing. You can just take the mana and go for Ulfen Skylord. Because this would be a 4/4. Dies to Nightfall, but I don't imagine Nyx would want to sabotage the full board for Nightfall, because then there's no pressure on either side, and Nyx does not really have a whole lot. Nyx burns a lot of resources to kill the Skylord in that context. But Nyx would have to decide whether or not those resources matter. Wow, finds Eltanon off the top, choosing to make a 1/1 construct instead. Rewarded for not going for the mana, but Eltanon is the pickup here. Eltanon's just not available right now, though. It would be X's 2 is the most you can do, and that gets rid of your board and Crucible of the Burning Sun and the Dragon token. You could maybe do X's 0 right now to get rid of the Dragon, but Inner Ring's Pupil still a very real problem, and you suddenly lose out on your ability to block Inner Ring's Pupil. We do see draw for turn is that Golden Bloom of the Silence that was scried to the top. I think this is... yeah, this is spiraling very away from Chip, but that is on account of Chip just having to be up against the resource grind. We're seeing Nyx mull things over a little bit, but I have to imagine Golden Bloom's just going to come in and disable Savvy Smith from now on. Especially seeing Stargazing. We're going to see Past Unresolved first. Finds a Duress, finds a Rostaball, mills 2 Swamps. So not going to be able to go Golden Bloom plus Nightfall here, but doesn't need to anymore. That's Duress and Rostaball. You can just pull the trigger on Duress. See what they've got. Take the Stargazing. You know the Stargazing's there. See what they've been hanging on to. And then Rostaball takes care of the Ulfen Skylord. So you can go, yeah, pick off Stargazing. Rostaball, pick off Ulfen Skylord, and then Golden Bloom of the Silenced on Savvy Smith, and then you've just got a 2/2 and a bunch of 1/1s to contend with. And swinging with Inner Ring's Pupil forces a sacrifice on the Pupil effect. So you could actually not even need to run out the Golden Bloom of the Silenced. You could go Rostaball here, get rid of the Skylord, swing Inner Ring's Pupil, see if Chip sacrifices 3 bodies on board, because that would be Chip blocking with Construct token plus Savvy Smith.
in order to kill after losing a construct to the attack trigger. And if Chip does go for that, you don't need to Golden Bloom on Savvy Smith. So we're going to see the roster ball get played, get rid of Ulfen Skylord, Path of Oblivion for you. And then is Golden Bloom going to come down here? I think if Golden Bloom comes down, you don't swing in with Inner Rings Pupil, but I think you swing in with Inner Rings Pupil, and then you'll let that decide whether or not you Golden Bloom on the Savvy Smith afterwards. Let's see. Decisions are about to be made. It is gonna be swinging in first. So yeah, sacrifice a construct, chooses to take 4, and yeah, is gonna block and trade Savvy Smith with Inner Rings Pupil. So that is 2 mana trading up to 4, but that is 2 bodies trading for 1. And now Golden Bloom just gets to name the next scariest thing. Oh, wow, not even going to run at the Golden Bloom, just best to save it. Yeah, I guess that's actually fair. Clash at Mistrit Vale does nothing if it's drawn. Can't play Clash at Orith Cross if that comes up. Path of Scales is already gone. Silent Lakefront's the draw, just goes ahead and cracks that for a basic. Can't swing in with the construct in the face of Kraz's Leyspire. The one of Eltanon being gone means that outside of a Clash at Orith Cross, the dragon token from the first Nightfall is pretty untouchable and can just go for the second dragon token here. Or go for the Transcendent Council. We still see Golden Bloom the Silenced. Clash at Orith Cross, I think, is the name here at this point. Yeah, Nick's got it on point. So board wipes are fully gone. Eltanon no longer available. Clash at Orith Cross no longer available. And then just goes for the Nightfall token, holding Transcendent Council in case a permanent comes up that actually matters. Swings in for 4. No one removal spell does it. And that's not even a removal spell. That is Rousing Path. Gets cycled for another land. The land's finally showing up just a little bit too late, and that is going to be Grand Prix Caersol going to Nyx here with mono black midrange, grinding out the control deck in the best of 3. Really putting the screws to Chip there in that last game through pure resource denial. And I think one of the all-stars of this matchup that really got to show itself, will pull over to the deck lists here again, especially in this particular slower matchup. There we go. This is the correct view. Crucible of the Burning Sun, really subtle, powerful here, both in denying the bits of incidental graveyard value, but importantly, is just a card selection engine that is very innocuous, not really worth boarding an interaction for in this kind of matchup, but is the kind of tool that just incidentally does so much. I'd seen Chip observe that perhaps additional copies of Eltanon would have been really worthwhile to look into for this deck, and certainly it is the one way to comfortably deal with a Crucible of the Burning Sun in this matchup. So that would be some nice incidental value to gain against Crucibles here. But yeah, Crucible just so good in these slower matchups. So not only is it a relevant graveyard hate card for the graveyard synergy decks like Aristocrats, but it also gets that additional value of coming up against control decks and just getting to grind them into oblivion, especially because we see so many graveyard-centric tools like Seafloor Treasures, like Discern, that just casually generate additional value from your graveyard. So having Crucible to shut those off, shut off Offset Daemon, and be that card selection engine is just so comfortably, subtly strong. Otherwise, All-Stars really have to be, Nightfall, just such a key sweeper and threat. Sweeper mode didn't really matter here, but the fact that it's a sweeper that you get to keep in the game 2s and game 3s against control means that's one fewer card you need to sideboard out and one more sideboard slot you need to have for control, because this is just gets to be a threat against control decks. Unmaker of Thought looked really good this match. Rostabal looked pretty decent in this match. Inner Rings People, obviously a classic. Transcendent Council, really, really brutally fast clock. And it looked like it was, in fact, Die As Thou Wilt, Damn to Hell, and Twilight Ambush likely all boarded out by Nyx there. Given we saw Golden Blooms, Crucibles, Karaz's Lace Spires, and the Data Wipes and Go Blanks. I suspect it might have even been, trimmed down on the draw twos to get in some of the Crucibles here. So, yeah, that is going to bring Grand Prix Caersol to a wrap here. Congratulations to Nyx on the Mono Black victory here. And that is Nyx's first back-to-back getting to join the esteemed ranks of only, I believe, 4 players. No, more than 4, but 4 players in this in the last 2 years, I believe. It might be more than 4. No, sorry. Yeah, there are 2 back in 2024, Anarchist and Split Moon. But last year we had 3 players all go back-to-back wins between Philippe Sanner, DrChipmunk, and Lee. And now we have our first back-to-back of the end of last year now into this year. Nyx taking Grand Prix Elseworlds, I believe, last month. And now Grand Prix Caersol this month. Congratulations again. That is going to put you in very comfortable standings for Worlds coming up in just a couple months. I can't wait to see how the format shakes up next month. We have already gotten a teaser about what the patch is likely going to look like and what changes are likely coming. If you're curious about that, go ahead and check out the resources in the description below. As always, it's going to be in the Revolution News channel on the Discord. We'll talk about those changes once they're locked in at the start of next month. Otherwise, if you enjoyed this match, be sure to give Nyx's perspective a check out. If you are curious to see Nyx's thought process through the whole matchup, that will again be in the info card as soon as I know that it is uploaded. If it's uploaded before this video, then it should already be up there. If it comes up after this video, you can check it out as soon as it is up there. And it'll be on the end card as well. And beyond that, I can't wait to get into next month. I can't wait to keep playing. It might die down a little bit next month. I'm going to see if I can try and play the GP, but I'm also going to be participating in the first Eternal Exhibition next month. That's the first time we're going to have that going on. So we're going to have Eternal also happening concurrently. And next month is the annual field test, so I'm going to be busy with that as well. So it's going to be a lot of custom Magic tournaments and play going on for me. I may not be able to juggle the GP. We'll see how things shape up. Regardless, I'll see you when I see you. At the very least, I'll see you at the start of next month with another patch review. Until then, take care, everyone, and I'll see you all in the Revolution chat. Bye-bye!